This machine costs $400 million. It fits inside a room, and without it, every smartphone, every laptop, every AI chip on Earth stops existing. There is exactly one company in the world that can build it, and for 30 years, almost everyone said it was impossible. This is the story of the most complex commercial machine humanity has ever built, and how a handful of stubborn engineers refused to accept that it couldn't be done. I'm Geek, and this is the machine that runs the modern world. To understand why this machine exists, you need to understand what's inside a microchip. Zoom into a chip and you find a city. Skyscrapers hundreds of layers tall, hundreds of kilometers of wires, and at the very bottom, transistors, billions of them. Transistors are the ones and zeros of computing. The chip works by moving electrons from transistor to transistor. And here's the rule: the smaller the transistor, the less distance electrons travel. The number you could fit on a chip doubled every 2 years. Gordon Moore noticed this pattern in 1965. It became Moore's Law, and it was the engine of the entire tech industry. Then, around 2015, it stopped. The transistors had gotten so small that the tools used to make them couldn't keep up anymore. Moore's Law was about to hit a wall, and the only way past it was a machine most engineers said could never exist. To understand the machine, you need to understand photolithography. Here's how a chip layer gets made. You take a silicon wafer and coat it with a light-sensitive material called photoresist. You shine light through a patterned mask. The light weakens certain areas of the coating. You wash those areas away, and what's left is your circuit pattern, etched into silicon. Simple in principle, but here's where physics fights back. To print smaller features, you need shorter wavelengths of light. Think of it like this. Try to draw a fine line with a thick marker, you can't. Use a sharp pencil, you can't. Light works the same way. The shorter the wavelength, the finer the detail. By the late 1990s, the industry settled on 198 nanometer deep ultraviolet light. That's the light they used to build every advanced chip until around 2015. But by then, they'd hit the limit. 198 nanometers couldn't go smaller. Moore's Law needed a new kind of light. It needed EUV, 13.5 nanometers. 14 times shorter than what they were using, which sounds like a simple upgrade. It wasn't. Back in 1981, a Japanese scientist named Hiro Kinoshita had a crazy idea. Why not use X-rays to print chips, wavelengths around 10 nanometers? In theory, you could print incredibly small features, but X-rays at those wavelengths are absorbed by almost everything. Lenses absorb them, air absorbs them, even most mirrors absorb them. Kinoshita's setup had to run in a vacuum, and he couldn't use lenses at all. Only specially designed mirrors could work. He spent years building those mirrors. He printed his first image. He presented it to the Japanese Society of Applied Physics in 1986, and the entire audience refused to believe it. He later said people treated it as, and I quote, a big fish story. Nobody believed X-ray lithography was real. But Kinoshita didn't give up. And across the Pacific, inside a lab built for nuclear weapons, another engineer was about to pick up the same idea: Lawrence Livermore and the nuclear connection. Lawrence Livermore Laboratory was built during the Cold War for one purpose: nuclear weapons. They designed over 10 fusion warheads, and their research on nuclear fusion meant they were generating enormous amounts of X-ray light they had never been able to capture and analyze. Until those special multi-layer mirrors gave them a chance. A scientist named Andy Howdylook used those mirrors to reflect X-ray light. In 1987, inspired by a professor's challenge, he wrote a white paper over 10 days during a Christmas shutdown. He applied these mirrors to chip manufacturing. He presented his findings at a conference. The reaction was brutal. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, every person he respected in the field came to the microphone and told him why it wouldn't work. He flew home and told his boss, "I will never speak of it again." 3 days later, his phone rang. It was the executive vice president of AT&T. Bell Labs believed, and the project got the funding to keep going. By the year 2000, the research had produced a working prototype, the engineering test stand. It printed 70 nanometer features. It proved EUV could work, but it could only print 10 wafers per hour. Commercial manufacturing needed hundreds, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. One by one, American companies walked away. The engineering challenges were too many, the investment too enormous. That left one company, ASML, a small Dutch company that had spun off from Philips with little more than a shed and a barely working machine. They took the bet nobody else would take. And the problem they had to solve first was the most fundamental one of all. How do you make EUV light? EUV light at 13.5 nanometers doesn't exist naturally anywhere on Earth. The closest natural source is the sun. ASML had to build an artificial sun inside a machine the size of a room. Here's how they do it. Extremely pure tin is melted and forced through a microscopic nozzle by high-pressure nitrogen. The nozzle vibrates at high frequency, breaking the tin into tiny droplets, each one roughly the size of a white blood cell. 50,000 droplets per second, all moving at 250 kilometers per hour. A carbon dioxide laser, 20,000 watts strong, 4 times more powerful than lasers that cut through steel, fires at each droplet. Not once, not twice, 3 times in 20 microseconds. The first pulse flattens the droplet into a pancake. The second pulse reduces its density further. The third pulse vaporizes it completely, heating it to over 220,000 degrees Celsius. That's 40 times hotter than the surface of the sun. And when that superheated tin plasma cools, it releases EUV light, 13.5 nanometer light, collected by a curved mirror and sent toward the chip wafer. One of ASML's engineers described watching 50,000 of these explosions per second and realizing they matched the mathematics of a Type 1a supernova. Tiny supernovas, 50,000 times a second inside a room in the Netherlands. The smoothest objects in the universe. The EUV light bounces through 6 mirrors before hitting the chip wafer. Each mirror has to be the smoothest object ever manufactured. If you scaled one of those mirrors to the size of the Earth, the largest bump on its surface would be no thicker than a playing card. They are atomically smooth. Built by ASML's partner, Zeiss, using a process where individual atoms are gently knocked into place until the surface is flat to within 2.3 silicon atoms of height variation. And after all 6 mirrors, the machine has to align one chip layer perfectly on top of the previous one. The maximum allowed error, 1 nanometer, 5 silicon atoms of precision. To control the mirrors at that accuracy, sensors guide each mirror to within a picoradian of its target position. As one engineer described it, if you put a laser on the mirror and pointed it at the moon, you could choose which side of a dime the beam hit. That's the precision required for a machine printing at the speed of a Formula 1 car's acceleration. By 2016, after 30 years, ASML's first commercial EUV machines started shipping. Today, every advanced chip on Earth is made with one of their machines. Every smartphone, every AI processor, every chip powering the technology you use every single day. One company, one town in the Netherlands, the most critical technology bottleneck in the entire global economy. 5,000 suppliers, 100,000 parts, 3,000 cables, 40,000 bolts, 2 kilometers of hose shipped in 250 containers across 25 trucks and 7 Boeing 747s. And it started with a Japanese scientist standing at a podium while an entire room of experts told him it was impossible. The people who changed the world weren't the ones who accepted the limits. They were the ones who kept building after everyone else walked away. I'm Geek, and that's the machine that runs the modern world.